Hey, what's going on today, guys? It's Trey. Welcome back to the channel. As always, welcome back to sunny, beautiful Germany. So as you can tell by the title of this video, I have lived here in Germany a little over 3 months now, and I have learned a lot. I've experienced a lot. It's been an amazing time here. But I want to talk about some of the things that have been pretty unique, pretty different, pretty crazy. We're going to talk about life here in Germany. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, before we dive into the video, usual disclaimers. My name is Trey. I am an American living here in Germany. I'm from South Florida. So I hope that gives you guys an idea of who I am as a person before I start to present to you a lot of the information and things that I will mention throughout this video. So without further ado, let's get into the first thing. The first thing I want to talk about is probably the most important thing that I'm going to mention in this video, and that is just how great the German people are. So before I moved here to Germany, I've been here to Germany before. I've been here to Germany numerous times. But before I moved here, I've heard a lot of people say that Germans are cold, Germans can be super blunt, Germans can be mean, they can be angry, they can be rude. And I have to say, I personally haven't experienced that, and I live in Stuttgart. I'm right here, and I personally haven't noticed that. And in fact, I've experienced the exact opposite. People have been great here. People have been helpful. People have been nice. People have been courteous. So before you come here to Germany, I just want you to know that people are here to help you. Just because somebody isn't smiling in your face or coming up to you to shake your hand, that doesn't mean that they're a mean person. This is a different country, so things are gonna be different than they are in the US or from wherever else you come from. So for example, in the US, let's say you're in the deep South, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Mississippi, Kentucky, South Carolina, North Carolina. A lot of those places, there's something called Southern hospitality. So when you travel to those states, people sort of go out of their way to be super kind and super friendly. That's not the case here in Germany. That doesn't mean that people here are angry or mad or frustrated or rude. It's just not how it is here. So I just kind of hope that we can put that to rest. People here in Germany are not rude. People aren't angry. People aren't nasty. It's just communication's different here in Germany. And so I wanted to mention that first because it's definitely one of the biggest things that I've noticed living here in my 3 months. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is actually pretty funny, and I'm sure Germans will get a good kick out of this, but I want to talk about grocery shopping. Grocery shopping here in Germany is completely different than it is in the US. So when you're here in Germany, strap up your boots, get ready for a very different and unique experience. So when you enter a German grocery store, the very first thing that you're going to notice is that people know exactly where they're going. They know exactly what they need, and they shop with a purpose. There's no lollygagging around. There's no, searching for this, searching for that. People know where their items are. People know where their goods are, and they get in and they get out of there as quickly as possible. And it does actually take a little bit of getting used to. And another thing I want to hit on that's pretty interesting about grocery stores here in Germany is actually the checkout process. Now, I personally would consider myself a pretty fast-paced individual. Grocery stores here in Germany are on a whole nother level than what I'm used to. For example, living in the US and shopping at Publix or Albertsons or Winn-Dixie's or Ralph's or Vaughn's. It's so different, the checkout process. You obviously get up to the checkout line, and you better be prepared to start putting your groceries on that conveyor belt, because the person behind you is already getting ready to put their stuff on the conveyor belt as well. And it was actually funny. So we went to Kaufland, which is like Walmart here in Germany, and older lady behind me, she was bumping my ankles, I guess because I wasn't moving fast enough. And it was pretty different. It was actually a little bit of a shock, but people move here quick. And actually the person that is working at the register, they are moving at lightning fast speed. They are checking items out as quickly as possible, because depending on where you live, for example, here in Stuttgart, which is the 6th largest city here in Germany, there are a lot of people at the grocery store. So that person at the register is trying to get everybody in and out of there as quickly as possible. And it's really, really fast. So, and another tip for anybody that hasn't lived in Germany before, just a couple of quick tips Make sure that you place your bottles, like if you're purchasing beer or wine or ketchup or mayonnaise, make sure that you lay it down flat, because the person working at the front, they'll actually appreciate that a little bit more. You know, that conveyor belt is moving quick. It just slows everything down. So just make sure you lay your bottles down flat. I promise you, it'll definitely make things in life a little bit easier. The next thing I want to talk about is just how amazing the food and the drinks are here in Germany. Germany is obviously well known for its amazing array and selection of beer, from Bavaria to here in Baden-Württemberg to all over the country. People know Germany for being a beer hub. And don't get me wrong, the beer is great, but actually the food is just as good as the beer is. And so before I actually moved here to Germany, really the only food that I've heard mentioned from Americans, for example, is bratwurst, sauerkraut, and that's really about it. And I know that that's like the bare minimum of German cuisine. That's literally like the teeny tiny tip of the German food pyramid, I guess, if you want to call it. German cuisine is so broad, and the food is really amazing here. I can't say enough great things about the food. And now transitioning back over to the beer, which is what Germany is known for, the beer is honestly so good. It's actually not even fair. So we just came back from Munich, and which obviously a lot of you Germans know, and a lot of people around the world know, some of the best beer on the planet could be found right there in Munich. Obviously, that's where the world's largest Oktoberfest is. But just walking into a grocery store, or walking into, a corner store, you could find some of the best beer that you've ever tried. And I personally am jealous of people that live in Bavaria or people that live in Munich, because there's such a wide selection. And even though here in Baden-Württemberg, we're located right next to Bavaria, it is hard to find a lot of the beer that you find here in Baden-Württemberg, for example. The beer is so good. Nothing is better than going for a long walk or a long hike or a walk through a park, and just being able to go to a beer garden or have a beer with you, which actually is gonna bring me to my next point. So drinking laws are also really different here in Germany from what I've noticed. So for example, let's say I'm in Miami, right? And I want to drink, or I come across a store and I wanna buy a beer. As soon as I leave that store, I can't open that beer and drink it. And that's actually the case in a lot of states in the US, right? Unless you're on Bourbon Street in New Orleans, Louisiana. So it actually really shocked me to come here to Germany and see how different the drinking culture is. It's deeply embedded in German culture. And so while on the surface that may actually shock a lot of Americans, a place where drinking is still considered taboo and dangerous, and all these negative stereotypes that come with drinking, it's very widely and openly accepted here in Germany. And I personally really appreciate that. I would consider myself to be a beer connoisseur, so nothing pleases me more than it being 90 degrees outside in Munich, for example, and just being able to walk into a store, grab a beer, open it up, and continue my walk. It is so crazy and shocking to me. But it's also one of those things that I really have grown to appreciate in my 3 months living here in Germany. Now, kind of piggybacking off of the last point that I made about drinking and being able to walk and explore, is I want to talk about just how great the outdoors are here in Germany. The US, don't get me wrong, has some great national parks. The beaches are some of the best on the planet. Here in Germany, the outdoors are just as good, and if not even better, in terms of being able to live in a city like Berlin or Munich or here in Stuttgart. There are literally parks placed all throughout these cities. And even if you go into less populated areas in the countryside, there are still tons of public parks. There are tons of nature trails. There's so much to see and do outside here in Germany. It's actually truly remarkable. One of the things that shocked me when we moved here is just how much there is to do and see outside. So for example, we live here in Stuttgart. There are probably like a good 400 trails just in this metropolitan area alone. And for me being a dad with a 1-year-old son, it makes life so much easier. Like there's no excuse for anybody to be able to say, man, what are we gonna do today? What is there to do? Like, I can't go outside. What are we gonna do outside? There is so much to do outdoors. Germany has found a way to sort of weave outdoor activities into their national identity. And so we're pretty fortunate here in Stuttgart because we live really close to the Black Forest. And that is one of the peak outdoor activities here in Germany. The parks are all cleaned, landscaping is well manicured. I personally don't have any complaints about the trails or the public parks. You don't have to worry about getting mugged or anything crazy like that. It's just really nice just to be able to take my family on a walk and to explore. There's so much to see and do outside here in Germany. It's honestly like one of the craziest things to discover moving here, because I came in here kind of blind. I flew into Germany very blind when it came to outdoor activities because we just moved from Hawaii, a place where the outdoors, that's life in Hawaii. Beaches, hiking, nature trails, that's all you do in Hawaii. And so coming to Germany, I was like, man, I'm gonna miss out on this. When in reality, I kept that same mindset. And so it just made things a lot easier. I consider myself to be pretty active. And so it's just really nice to live in a place that truly values the outdoors. Heading in a completely different direction, the next thing I wanna talk about is just how much Germany truly values the youth in this country. So as I mentioned earlier, my son is 1 year old, so he's unfortunately not able to take advantage of the numerous activities out there that are afforded to German children regarding schooling and pre-K, or what we would consider to be pre-K in the US. There are so many opportunities for kids here in Germany, and it's really reassuring to see, right? So kids here in Germany are afforded some of the best educational opportunities possible. And I'm not talking about just sitting in a classroom, opening up a book and taking tests. No, kids here in Germany, they learn it all. They learn how to swim, they take hikes, they go on field trips, they go to museums, they go to libraries, they learn other languages, they watch movies, they learn how to dress themselves, they learn proper hygiene. And it starts at a really young age. And I'm sure people are gonna chime in the comment section, sort of the process that youth go through in terms of, starting here and working their way up through the German educational system. But it is completely different than it is in the US. In the US, for example, you start in a program called Head Start, for example, or pre-K, whatever your parents decide, and you just are kind of tied to a classroom. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes they go on field trips, sometimes they get outside of the classroom, which is nice. And I personally was afforded those opportunities as well. But here in Germany, I just see kids outside all the time doing things that I would have never even imagined doing in school in the US. They're literally just roaming through like fields and picking flowers and picking fruit, and like they're learning about agriculture, things that I just personally wouldn't think kids would be doing. I do think kids should be doing that, and that's why I applaud the German educational system so much. And honestly, that's probably the main reason why my wife and I are trying to do everything possible to make sure that our son is enrolled as early as possible in the German educational system, because it's world class and these kids have some really great opportunities to grow and thrive, and it's setting them up for success in the future. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is people here in Germany. I have noticed that they speak at least 3 languages. Obviously that's going to vary depending on where you live in the country. But for example, here in Stuttgart, since we're pretty close to the French border, people tend to speak English, they obviously speak German, and then most of the time they speak French. I can only say that that's how it is here, or at least that's what I notice. and that's what I hear. And I think that's really impressive. And obviously that doesn't just start in your adult years. People usually end up speaking those 3 languages from childhood, up until your teen years into adulthood. And so typically they're fluent in all 3 of those languages. That's really impressive. That is not something that we're used to in the States. Now, obviously, Spanish is the 2nd most spoken language in the US behind English. But after Spanish, nobody's really making it their mission to learn a 3rd language. And now I can't speak for everybody. I'm not grouping everybody together as a whole in the US. I mean, nationally, most people only are bilingual, which is okay. Obviously, being bilingual is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think it's really impressive to see in every corner of Germany, at least, people are trilingual. And I think that's really awesome. And it gives Germans a leg up when they decide to travel and cross borders because they're able to speak that language in that other country. So Germany, I knew Germany was a diverse country, obviously, but I had no idea just how diverse it truly was. And so here in Stuttgart, for example, which is a really international city, for it to be the 6th largest city in Germany, it's truly a global city. And obviously, like, it's home to Daimler and Porsche and Bosch and all these large German companies, which obviously bring in people from all over the world. This is really a diverse place. So like walking around in Stuttgart Mitte, for example, you see such a diverse array of people. You hear different languages. It's just really, really reassuring, right? So obviously coming from the US, a place which is super diverse, I wasn't expecting Germany to be as diverse as it is. And obviously this is gonna vary depending on where you live. Next thing I wanna talk about is a really quick thing to mention. But man, people here in Germany do not run red lights. Like, doesn't matter if there's a camera or not, just nationwide, people do not run red lights. In the US, when that light hits yellow, it's NASCAR, Daytona 500. I gotta get through, I gotta get across. I gotta make this light. Like, so the mindset here in Germany is completely different. People do not run red lights at all. But speaking of red lights, the next thing I want to talk about is traffic. Traffic here in Germany is really, really bad, especially in the larger cities. So we were in Munich. I know people from Munich are going to be watching this video like, dude, yeah, traffic sucks here, obviously. 2nd largest city in Germany. But man, the traffic here is bad. As soon as you see Stau on the Autobahn or really any thoroughfare, if you see Stau, just know that you're gonna experience some really bad traffic. But one of the biggest reasons why the traffic is so bad here is because they're starting to fix a lot of the roads here in Germany. And so this is obviously something that happens in every country. But here in Germany, nationwide, they're really fixing the roads. And so traffic was bad before they started to fix the roads. And now that they're starting to fix the roads, the traffic has worsened big time. So traffic, big deal here in Germany. I know some people are watching this that probably live, in the middle of nowhere that are like, traffic, what is that? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But no, the traffic is actually kind of bad here in Germany. Now, probably really the only negative thing that I'm gonna have to say about Germany in this video is this next point right here. And man, it takes forever to get home internet here in Germany. Why is that? Maybe somebody has some answers or solutions. I understand that, there's obviously supply chain issues due to the pandemic and whatnot. I totally understand that. I get that. I work in tech. I understand how it is. But man, why does it take forever to get home internet? So we got home internet with Vodafone, and dude, it took 3 weeks to get it. In the US, when you get home internet, depending on where you go, let's say if you go to Verizon or AT&T, you're walking out of there same day with your modem, with your router, your cable box. You're walking out same day with that equipment. That is not the case here in Germany. And in fact, Vodafone was the quickest company that was delivering the home internet. So maybe somebody can mention in the comment section why it takes so long, but bruh, it takes forever to get home internet here in Germany. But once you get it, it's actually pretty good. That's one thing that shocked me too, is people were saying like, oh, the internet quality is terrible. I actually work in telecom, so I understand you can't please everybody. And I understand how network speed works. You know, I understand the infrastructure. It's not that bad here in Germany. So, you know, if you've heard that it's bad, just block all of that out. I promise you it's good. Okay, the final thing I want to mention is really going to shock a lot of people, especially the Germans. But the German bureaucracy is not as bad as you would think. And so, for example, we moved into our apartment here in Stuttgart. And when you move into an apartment, you have to register your home at the local Rathaus. And so that's what we did. I did it one morning. Yeah, it was a long line. It was like an hour-and-a-half process, which is actually kind of short. But I got in there. I had all the information that I needed, you know, and I was in and out pretty quickly. There was no like, hey, you know, you need this, you need that, you need that. So when I think of bureaucracy, right, that's what I think of. You come in with everything that you need and you leave without having, you know, what you came there for, if that makes sense, right? And so I think that me being somebody that is from the US, right, not from Europe, and going and taking part in this process that I think is pretty crazy, having to register your house somewhere physically, I thought that that process was pretty smooth, right? And I know there are other examples of the German bureaucracy out there, but I don't think it's that bad. And at least the interactions that I've had with German officials in public settings, it really hasn't been that bad, right? I've heard horror stories. I've heard terrible things. But for me, it was pretty smooth, and that shocked me big time. So, but it wasn't that bad. So come here with an open mind, be well prepared, and you can get through this German bureaucracy that I hear so much about. All right, guys, so that's gonna do it for me. I know that was a little bit longer of a video, but I hope it helped to shed some light. I hope it was entertaining. I'm sure a lot of people have some questions. Some people probably want to give me feedback, which I always really appreciate. Please feel free to use the comment section below as a meeting space to ask questions, to give feedback, to tell me what I was doing wrong, to tell me what I was doing right, to tell me about this process, tell me about that process, getting my son into the German education system, where I should eat, where I should avoid. Tell me anything. If you want to teach me how to tie my shoes the right way, bring it up in the comment section below. I'm always very active there, and I appreciate all the feedback that you guys give. You guys are great. To everybody that I have interacted with before, thank you guys so much. You guys are all family to me. Germany, I don't have any family here, minus my wife and my son, and so you guys are considered our extended family, and so welcome home. I hope that my channel is a vessel for positivity, for education. I really look forward to continuing to learn about Germany. This is a truly amazing country. And one of the most reassuring things that I noticed in the comment section, for example, is Germans saying, man, Trey, you're right. This country really is amazing. Or man, I totally forgot how simplified this was being a German citizen. Or man, like it's so nice to be able to go to the doctor and not have to fork out a penny. Like just seeing all that stuff is reassuring to me. And I really like and enjoy making these videos because it helps in so many different ways. And so thank you guys for all the continued love and support. It is pouring down rain outside. This is typical Baden-Württemberg weather. Thank you guys for the continued love and support. Thank you. Mahalo for watching.